Jazaki Show. I'm the Trev. That's too sweet. Anyway, continuing on with retired numbers, and today we're gonna catch up the Carolina Hurricanes. For now. So me saying for now means they have one in the tank, and since this is the third number the Hurricanes have retired in their history, let's catch them up, even if it's just for now. But anyway, when I personally think of the Carolina Hurricanes and their 2006 Cup run, it's pretty much not even a question of who else. It's unanimous. When I think of the Carolina Hurricanes and them winning the Cup, automatically I think of their captain. And more than just the 06 run, but also the 02 run, because, I mean, it's pretty instrumental in that one as well. So today, we're going to talk about the number 17, which is worn in Carolina by Rod Brind'Amour. Let's talk about it. All right. So Brind'Amour's 10 years in Carolina began on January 23rd, 2000, after he was traded along with Jean-Marc Peltier and a second-round pick in the 2000 NHL entry draft from the Philadelphia Flyers for Keith Primeau and a fifth-round pick in the 2000 NHL draft. And right off the hop, this is a move that definitely helped the Hurricanes. Or at the time, general manager of the Hurricanes, Jim Rutherford, said this was the move the Hurricanes needed to make. Now, his first game with the Hurricanes would end up being the very next night in a 3-2 overtime win against the Montreal Canadiens. You're going to hear that team's name a lot in this video. Sorry. No, he didn't get in any points in that game. He did manage to get a 2-minute penalty in every period of that game, with the exception of overtime. Now, Brind'Amour would play 33 games for the Hurricanes, contributing only 14 points in the process, to go with the 22 points in only 45 games played that season. Now, though the Hurricanes did play well down the stretch, they didn't make the playoffs, missing out by just 1 point. It's always heartbreaking when you miss it by just that 1 point. Now, the 2000-2001 season would be a nice turnaround season for both the Hurricanes and for Brind'Amour, and this would be his first full season with the Hurricanes, and he would also be named an alternate captain in the process before the start of the season. Now, while the Hurricanes did allow the most shorthanded goals during the regular season amongst all the NHL teams, they did have fewer goals against, at least more fewer goals against than the Boston Bruins did, making the 8th and final spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs on a tiebreaker. Everything was the same except goals against. Carolina had fewer than the Bruins. And while the Hurricanes did make the playoffs, they sure didn't stick around for very long, losing to eventual Stanley Cup finalists, the New Jersey Devils, in 6 games, where Brind'Amour would add 4 points in those 6 games. Now, the 01-02 season would be one of the best Hurricanes seasons to this point in time, as the Hurricanes would win their second Southeast Division Championship in team history, with Brind'Amour adding 55 points in 81 games. Now, while the Hurricanes did win their division, the expectations by the quote-unquote experts weren't very high for the Hurricanes, as first the Hurricanes would be lined up against the previous Stanley Cup finalists in the New Jersey Devils. And really, thanks to solid goaltending, the Hurricanes managed to beat them in 6. Next was the Montreal Canadiens, who were riding all kinds of momentum, both, professionally and personally, and, riding the emotional inspiration that was Captain Saku Koivu. Well, I mean, Montreal just managed to get outscored in the last 2 games of the series by a total of 13-3. And, Hurricanes eliminated the Canadiens in 6. So then came the Toronto Maple Leafs. And really, thanks to a lucky overtime goal in Game 6, the Hurricanes were going to the Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in franchise history. And for Brind'Amour, this would be his first trip to the Stanley Cup Finals since 1997. And while the Hurricanes did mean well, as they were playing the 2002 Detroit Red Wings, which had no shortage of Hall of Famers, while they played well and even getting the most important first game win, the Hurricanes would eventually bow out in 5 games, with Brind'Amour adding 12 points in 23 playoff games. Now, the 02-03 season would definitely be a change of what we just experienced, going from the Stanley Cup Finals appearance to dead last in the NHL. But it did have its positives, as Brind'Amour would play in his 1,000th career game on November 15th, 2002, becoming the 181st player in league history to do so, and the second Hurricane to do so in team history. Well, third if you count Whalers history, but we're talking the Hurricanes, not the Whalers. Brind'Amour, however, would only be limited to 48 games this season, putting up 37 points in the process. The 2003-2004 season, while still better than the 2002-2003 season, still didn't see the Hurricanes in the playoffs. And Brind'Amour would play in 78 games, contributing 38 points, including a 3-way tie for team lead in assists with 26. And then the big one happened. So during the lockout, like most NHL players during this season, Brind'Amour would go play in Europe, playing in the Swiss League. But when the NHL came back for the 05-06 season, so did Brind'Amour. Now, prior to the start of the 05-06 season, Brind'Amour would be named team captain, becoming the 4th player in Hurricanes history to be awarded the seat. And it really seemed to help out in a very big way. Now, the Hurricanes would finish with their best season to that date, with a team record of 52 wins and 112 points. Obviously, both records have since been broken. However, Brind'Amour would go to add 70 points in 78 games. So that trip to Europe that year off really helped. I mean, he was scoring 50s, low 30s. Now he's in the 70s. Awesome. Now the Canes would go on a run of a lifetime in these playoffs, eliminating the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games before walking through the New Jersey Devils in 5 games. In the Eastern Conference Finals, the Hurricanes were able to hold off the Sabres in a very back-and-forth 7-game series on their way to the Stanley Cup for the second time in 4 years. This time, though, thankfully, they got the Edmonton Oilers, the number 8th seed in the Western Conference, and the first team in the number 8 seed to actually make it to the Cup final. So they were on a run of their own. Not the Detroit Red Wings from 2002, to say the least. However, that didn't necessarily mean the Oilers weren't a strong opponent either, as the Oilers took the Hurricanes from a 3-1 series lead all the way to Game 7. Now, Carolina was able to hold the Oilers from scoring in Game 7, winning not just the series, but the first and only to-date Stanley Cup in franchise history. And this is the moment I think of, where he just snubs Gary Bettman, doesn't bother to shake his hand, just takes the cup and lifts it up. That's what I think of when I think of Carolina in their 06 Cup run. Now, Brind'Amour would add 18 points in 25 games, and like I said, gave us a very photogenic moment. Now, along the way, at the end of the 05-06 season, Brind'Amour would be awarded the Frank J. Selke Trophy as the league's best defensive forward. It's not a bad way to top off Stanley Cup and an award. Roll in. The 06-07 season would turn out to be not one of the best seasons for the defending Stanley Cup champs. But for Brind'Amour, it wouldn't be without a few things to note. On November 4th, 2006, he would get his 1,000th career point in a 3-2 win against the Ottawa Senators, becoming the 71st player in NHL history to do so. And on February 17th, 2007, he would score 2 goals against the Montreal Canadiens, told you, to get his 400th career goal. So, while those are all amazing things, the Hurricanes were also the first team since the 95-96 New Jersey Devils to fail to advance to the playoffs the year after winning the Stanley Cup. Now, Brind'Amour would finish the season with 82 points in 78 games, including the team lead in assists with 56. And, to top it all off, he'd also be awarded his second consecutive Frank J. Selke Trophy as the league's best defensive forward. Now, his 82 points will be the first time since the 95-96 season that Brind'Amour would hit the 80-point plateau. The 2007-2008 season was well on the right way to another high-point season for Brind'Amour. However, injuries would cut his season short to only 59 games, contributing 51 points in the process. The 08-09 season would see Brind'Amour bounce back from his 07-08 season, playing 80 games and contributing 51 points. And this time, the Hurricanes made their way back to the playoffs, managing to clinch the 6th seed and facing the Atlantic Division champs in the conference quarterfinals, that being the New Jersey Devils. And thanks to 2 overtime wins and a wild stroke of momentum, the Hurricanes beat the Devils in a full 7-game series. And after that came the Northeast Division champs in the Boston Bruins. And thanks in large part to a Game 7 overtime win, the Hurricanes found themselves in the conference finals against the previous season's Stanley Cup finalists, the Pittsburgh Penguins. And again, despite their best efforts, the Hurricanes were just outscored and outplayed by the eventual Stanley Cup champs, bowing out in a 4-game sweep. Now, Brind'Amour would contribute 4 points in 18 games played, but unfortunately this would be the last time Brind'Amour would play in the playoffs. The 2009-2010 season will be Brind'Amour's last season as an NHL player. On January 20th, 2010, Brind'Amour would be replaced as team captain by Eric Stahl, who was previously an alternate captain, which would be a role that would go back to Brind'Amour. In 80 games played, Brind'Amour would put up a career-low 19 points, and at the end of the season, Brind'Amour would announce his retirement from the NHL. And that about sums up the story of Rod Brind'Amour's time in Carolina. Now let's talk some numbers. So in 694 games played with the Hurricanes, 174 goals, 299 assists for 473 total points. Now as playoffs is concerned, 77 games played, 20 goals, 24 assists for 44 points. 2-time Frank J. Selke Trophy winner in 2006 and 2007, and he's even won a Jack Adams Award as Coach of the Year in 2021 for coaching the Hurricanes, a position he's held since 2019. And of course, being captain of the 2006 Stanley Cup champs never hurts either. Not in the Hall of Fame as of this recording, but he did have his number retired on February 18th, 2011, ironically enough, against the Philadelphia Flyers. And he's the second player from the 2006 Stanley Cup run to have his number retired by the Hurricanes, the one being Glenn Wesley, who we talked about here. So here's my own opinion. Now, while he didn't have his prime career in Carolina, he had some really good years nonetheless. And he brought a toughness to the team that was sorely needed, as Jim Rutherford said that I talked about in the beginning. This was the trade the Hurricanes needed to make. And I mean, as well as a drive when it came to playoff time, like his playoff competitiveness was unmatched, and it was hard to keep up sometimes. Amazing two-way forward, whether it was in Carolina, St. Louis, or Philadelphia. He was always a really good two-way forward. Especially when his career resurged in 06, even in 07, even before he got hurt in 08. Just doing really good things for a defensive forward. He was great to watch, and definitely helped the Hurricanes become serious contenders that, in a time when they needed to be serious contenders. But anyway, that's where we're at. It's another one of them Trev's hockey shows. I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't think I don't appreciate the gesture, especially if you've made it to this point. And if you have made it to this point, let me know how I did. I know I tried this kind of method on the trade page, and, well, results may vary. Hopefully it does better here. But if you like what I did, if you're digging my work, even if you're just popping by, you just want to say hi, give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate that very much. While you're at it, if you haven't done so by yet, that red button that says subscribe all over it, come on, you know you want to. Help my algorithm out. Make it happen. If you want, you can find me on Facebook. Links in the description below. So moving forward, I've got about 3 more of these on the go, and I've got about 5 scripts in total that I'm working on, but look for stuff. Either way, it's coming. So in the meantime, and in between time, be looking for more videos from Trev. Later.